Chambers of the Occult may contain content that might not be suitable for all listeners. Listener discretion is advised. Hello. And I
Hello.
froze again.
It's back.
We're back.
We're back to freezing, folks.
Yeah.
Um,
Episode
hey,
25.
25.
I'm Jay.
Chambers of the Occult. And I'm Kai. Hello.
And this is our last full episode for the year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our last episode for the year. That's crazy.
Yeah. There's still an old news
And-
nonsense
and-
coming up next week, but
Yes.
that's going to be for the new year,
Our
actually.
last. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is going to be the last
This is the last
episode.
episode.
Wow. Way to close it out, I guess.
If you guys stuck around.
Can you believe we're already a year into this?
Yeah. Crazy.
It's crazy.
If you guys stuck
That's
around,
awesome.
thank
I
you.
don't know. Yeah, thanks for being here.
If you're new, welcome.
And if you're not new, thanks, welcome back.
Yeah.
And if you're lolly,
Thank you.
Hi, thanks
Yeah.
for sticking with us. If you don't know who we're talking about, that's okay. That's fine.
One day.
It's just our biggest fan like ever, you know.
Yeah. She'll find any TV
something
and
like
she'll
that.
just put it on there.
Yeah, that's so crazy. We've been going for a year now, and it's been really fun.
Yeah, time flies.
Oh, and then Podfest.
Yes.
How this has opened that up for us too. I listeners, I don't know if any of you guys know what Podfest is. I don't think Jay or I knew about it until recently.
Nope.
But we are gonna be at Podfest in Florida
In January. Yeah.
So that's awesome.
Starting the year strong.
Yeah, and we are like selected to get tickets to go by Buzzsprout, how we publish our episodes.
Yeah.
So it just feels cool that we've like done something, you know?
Yeah. They were like, hey,
You know
would
what I
you
mean?
like us to pay for your ticket? Send an application. And we
Yeah.
were like, sure.
And we got accepted quick.
It was like within well, I mean,
It was like in like a
you waited like 3
That's true.
days because like you submitted it
Yeah.
like 2 days before the deadline.
Yeah, so I guess it was only like 2 days for them to get back to 2 or 3, something like that.
But,
Anyway, yeah, so really cool. We're gonna do some cool things. We have some paranormal investigations coming
yes,
up.
we do. So keep an eye out for that on our
You guys
YouTube.
will get more details later on.
Yeah.
You guys will get more details later on.
If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube, maybe this is your chance to do it now. That way you can see it when it comes out.
Maybe this is the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Going into the new year, actually following our YouTube. Because in my opinion, I think YouTube is the best way to watch our podcast. Listen to our podcast.
Because you can see
well,
us.
Because you can see us.
You can see the finger
Exactly.
guns.
Yeah. Exactly. And whenever I'm super quiet or Jay's super quiet, even though we've said something crazy, it's because we have the most like flabbergasted look on our face and we just don't have the words. So actually seeing that video is really cool.
Yeah.
Also, I want to say, Jay, very nice. He got me a Christmas gift. And one of them was like the little door hanger thingy that you got me. It was so cute. Wait, let me go grab it.
Go for it.
So something I've talked about in the past is how like sometimes I'll get like interrupted or my mom will knock on my door or something like that if I'm recording.
Yeah.
I was like, I need one of those little things you hang on your door that's like, oh, recording in progress or something. And Would you look at what he got me? Thank you, Jay.
Yeah,
This
you're
is
welcome.
really cool, actually. Yeah. And then I just opened the second one, the
Okay.
set of dice.
Yes.
So cool.
So they
So
glow
cool.
under black light.
Okay, that's what I was thinking, because there was a little UV light with it. I just need to plug it in.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
thank you.
No,
super cool.
I saw them and I'm like, Soros. As
Soros.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
happy holidays, everyone.
Yeah, I just wanted to get that out there. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. Merry Kwanzaa.
Kwanzaa, yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. Sorry, I don't mean to be disrespectful.
You know, if you celebrate something
good
for the
times.
holidays, happy whatever you're celebrating.
If you celebrate something, we're celebrating right alongside with you.
And if you're not celebrating, you still get some time off work. Hopefully.
Hopefully, I don't, which sucks.
That's true.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's life.
But yeah.
Anyway,
I think we're
last episode of the year.
Lots of good energy, I think. And then I'm gonna bring it down.
Lots of good energy. And I'll bring it right back up again.
Okay, I hope so.
Take it away, Jay, for our last episode of the year.
So I think I picked a really good one for the last episode of the year. Saying it now out loud, I think it's a really good one. So I'm going to start with a question. I might be a little specific, but I think it might be just like unique to everyone that listens. Like, what were some of the strange beliefs you had as a kid that like you no longer believe in? I don't know if there's any that you can think of.
I don't know if like a belief necessarily when I was little. Oh, the belief where like it was illegal to turn the light on in the car.
Yes, at night.
I thought that was illegal.
I thought so too.
Okay, not a belief necessarily, but I was just so scared of the dark. Like I was so scared, I would like flip off the light switch and I'd like run up the stairs super quick.
No, I think, I think everything in my childhood was pretty normal compared to other childhoods, like belief wise.
Okay.
But yeah, I think that
I found out the tooth fairy wasn't real pretty quickly. I kind of ruined that for myself.
That's where it's a cultural difference. Because in Mexico, they don't have a tooth fairy. They have a tooth mice. So a mouse shows up into your house, takes the tooth, and leaves you money behind.
Okay.
Never questioned it. As a child, you're just like, money, okay. Yeah. But the reason I was asking that, it's because that's definitely going to have something to do in this story. You know, what does it take for someone to cross the line of simply believing in something and actually acting upon it?
Huh. Okay.
Yeah. Like,
this is a good way to get it started.
Yeah. You know, just questions to have in your head. But for this case, we're heading to a state we haven't gone to yet. We're heading to Waukesha, Wisconsin.
Wisconsin, home of the cheese curd.
Yes. So
I think
the year
fried
is
cheese curd, at least
2014. So relatively recent. And we're gonna meet 3 girls, 3 friends, 3 besties, or resties, or whatever they call it. And this is where you meet. This is where we're gonna meet Peyton, who also goes by Bella, but I'm mostly gonna refer to her as Peyton. There's also Morgan, and there's Anissa. They're all 12-year-olds. And Peyton and Morgan were close friends during 4th grade, because Peyton was just drawn to Morgan because she seemed to be more of a loner and she didn't really seem to have many friends. So Peyton just wanted to be a nice person and went to talk to her. They became friends.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, she was kind-hearted and she wanted to befriend her and to make her feel included. So over time, they became best friends. And then Morgan met Anissa. They met in middle school, and then they bonded over shared interests, including like things online and just what kids bond over. So Anissa, like Morgan, was a little bit of a loner, so the two quickly got close, and then Morgan introduced Peyton to Anissa, and then that's when the trio formed. So
Okay.
Morgan and Anissa were a little bit of loners. Peyton not so much, but Peyton just became friends with Morgan, and then through Morgan she met Anissa. So now we're gonna skip to May 31st, 2014. Now
Okay.
Morgan and Anissa invited Peyton over for a sleepover to celebrate Morgan's birthday. So
Okay.
this
So she
sleepover,
was turning 12.
yes, she was turning 12.
Okay.
Yeah. The sleepover was pretty normal, and the girls played games, they watched movies, they stayed up late, typical sleepover. And then the next morning after breakfast, they said that they should go to a park and just play that's nearby. So they agreed on it. Morgan began to pack her bag with food as well as some other things. But Peyton was looking at some of the things that she was packing, and she found some of the things that Morgan put in her bag to be unusual, like a picture of Morgan's family was in the bag as well. So it's like, okay, it makes sense that we're gonna bring like granola bars and water bottle to the park, but
Okay.
why
Yeah.
why a family picture?
Why this picture?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's weird.
Now at this point they were already friends for a few years, so Peyton did say that Morgan had some odd quirks, so she, saw that it was a weird thing and tend to dismissed it, and they just went to the park. Um,
Mhm.
so they get to the park, they're playing for a while, and then after that, they're just going to the bathroom because they said that there's some graffiti in there, and they want to take a look. This is where things go. I'll let you put words to it. Because in the
Where things
bathroom,
go awry? I
maybe.
don't know.
This is where, yeah. So Morgan, Peyton, and Anissa were in the bathroom, and they told Morgan that there was some graffiti, some like vandalism, none that they could see.
Yeah.
So then that's when Morgan grabbed
Okay.
Peyton by the arms from behind, and Anissa
Okay.
struck Peyton's head.
Okay.
Now,
That escalated very
yes,
quickly.
Morgan, of course, she yelled in pain. Not Morgan, Peyton yelled out in pain. Um,
Mhm.
and then eventually, um, Anissa apologized for striking her, and like it was like a
What?
one-time thing, and then they walked out of the
So like it
bathroom. Yeah,
happened. It happened. Peyton probably was like, "What the
yeah, and
fuck?"
it's like, "Hey,
And the
sorry," or
two
just
girls were
like,
like,
"We're
"Sorry,
just
haha.
playing." Yeah, yeah, something like
We
that.
were just messing around."
So then,
What?
yeah,
That makes zero
at
sense.
that point,
Okay.
Peyton's a little uncomfortable, so she just leaves the
Yeah,
bathroom with the
of
girls.
course.
Um, so they all leave the bathrooms, and then I think it was Morgan that made the suggestion that they should go into the woods to play hide and go seek, just because it's a park with
Oh
wood
my
nearby.
god.
Um, at that
Right
point,
after this
yeah, at
too,
that
which is
point, Peyton wasn't really on board. She was just kind of uncomfortable from the
good.
situation,
Yeah.
but she still decided to go with them. Peer pressure type of thing.
Okay,
Now,
girl.
once they were in the woods, Anissa told Peyton to lie down on the ground. She's claimed that it was part of the game and that she should cover herself with sticks and dirt. And then Peyton, of course, she was hesitant because she didn't want to comply because it was a weird request. It's like, if we're playing hide and go seek, why
Yeah,
do I
what the
have to get
fuck?
on the
I'm
ground?
just gonna hide. I'm not gonna like bury myself.
Yeah, yeah. So Anissa sat down on Peyton. Peyton was laying down. Anissa sat down on Peyton. And then Peyton said that she couldn't breathe. So a little after that, Morgan grabs her backpack and she pulls out a kitchen knife,
What the
which they
fuck?
had brought from Morgan's house. So when she was packed in all those granola bars and everything, she put a knife in there.
She grabbed a knife too.
And then Morgan turns to Anissa and tells her, quote, "I'm not going to until you tell me to," end quote. So Anissa, the girl that's sitting down, turns to Peyton, um, turns to Morgan and says, "Go ballistic, go crazy."
A 12-year-old girl says that?
Yes. That is a quote. Yes. Go ballistic, go crazy.
Okay.
So then Morgan was sitting on Peyton's legs, um, and Morgan brought her face real close to Peyton's face and she whispered, "I'm sorry" in her ear, and then began repeatedly stabbing Peyton and pushing her down during the attack. Peyton was then stabbed
Uh,
19 times
holy fuck.
in her arms, legs, and her torso. So Peyton still had the strength, to remain conscious. Eventually, the girls got off of her, and she started stumbling through the woods. Peyton was asking for help, trying to scream for help. The girls came up to her and told her to stay still, to rest, to like lay down because it would slow down the bleeding. And then they told Peyton that they were going to go get help.
Don't tell me Peyton listened.
So, well, the girls didn't really look back at Peyton. They just left Peyton bleeding on the ground and like they walked away. Um, so Peyton just continued to struggle. Despite her injuries, she managed to crawl out of the woods to a nearby road. Um, and that's where she was discovered by a passing cyclist who found her.
Thank
He
God.
called 911, and during the 911 call, they're like, "Hey, what's your emergency?" He's like, "I think I found a girl and I think she's bleeding." It's like, Is she bleeding?" It's like, "It looks like she's bleeding." Um, so Peyton was rushed to the hospital, where the doctors described her survival as miraculous, just giving the extent of her wounds and like the locations. So I
Mhm.
do have some information of where the key injuries happened during the stabbing. So
That's crazy that you have that. Okay.
there's a lot of
What?
information for this case.
Okay.
So key
I'm
injuries
ready.
include a stab wound to her chest, which narrowly missed a major artery near her heart, um, and wounds to her
Okay.
diaphragm, liver, and her stomach. So during one of the interviews with Dr. John Kelman, at the Waukesha Memorial Hospital, he said that the knife cut through the tissue, but not the artery. And he said that
Good.
if it
Thank
had
God.
cut through the artery, like she would have died from a
She'd
heart
be
attack in
dead.
a minute or two. Yep. So then I also have a little screenshot here of what they mentioned in the report. It said that, okay, where is
Okay.
it? The officer indicated that at the Memorial Hospital, they took a CAT scan to determine the severity of her injuries. And then where else? Yep. The physician indicated that there was fluid around the heart, which required a thorax surgical team to be called in. They also noted that the total of 19 stab wounds were located and they were also photographed because this was a crime.
Wow.
Uh,
Yeah, it was. Good. Glad I was treated as such.
yeah. And it said that the stab to the artery was 1 millimeter away from certain death. It was just that close. If the girls had gone deeper, Peyton would have died.
Wow. Wow, it was the teeniest little bit.
Yep.
If she stabbed just a little further, holy fuck.
Just a little bit more, and she wouldn't have been able to even
And then
struggle.
Peyton would have bled out.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it said that she was struck with a knife, and several medical personnel pretty much all said that she was lucky to be alive. Now, during surgery, the injuries were also located on her liver, pancreas, and her stomach, which were all, of course, stabbed.
Yeah.
Now, at this point, when she was taken to the hospital, she did say that her friend stabbed her. So now the police are on the search for the two friends. They don't know where they could
Good.
have gone, but they are walking around with a
They
backpack.
don't know where these two 12-year-old girls
They're walking around
Could have
with
gone
a bag that has water bottles and granola bars. So they were quote unquote ready to
fine
run
for at least
away.
a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the police found Morgan and Anissa hours later at 2:52 p.m. and they were walking along the side of a highway about 5 miles from the crime scene. So prior to doing a pat down of searching the girls, the police asked Morgan if she had anything that would hurt him, sharp edges, needles, knives, etc. And Morgan told him that there was a knife in her purse that was nearby the tree line. So at this point, the police officer didn't know that they were part of a crime. Yeah, he just
Suspects
saw two girls
or
walking on the
anything?
side, pulled over to the side, did a pat down. He did notice that there was blood on
That's
Morgan's
weird.
clothes. Well, I mean, it's just two
Okay, so that's
14-year-old
probably why
girls.
he saw them.
Yeah. Yeah, he did notice that there was blood on Morgan's
No, I
clothes.
mean it's that makes it weirder that it's just two little girls that he pulls over then pats down for no apparent reason. But it's probably because he saw they were covered in
He noticed
blood.
that they were covered in blood. He
Yeah.
also asked Morgan if she was injured, and that's probably why he pulled over. He saw blood, maybe they're hurt. When he asked her if she was
Hmm.
injured, she responded that she wasn't. And when he asked where the blood came from, this is what she said, and I quote, she was, I was forced to stab her best friend to death. Just,
She was forced to stab her best friend to death.
yep.
That
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
That
So
gives the officer a reason to pat them down.
the policeman asked Morgan what happened, and Morgan just told him that she and another girl had stabbed a girl because they were forced to stab her.
Hmm. So like the both of the girls were both forced to stab
That's what Morgan
Peyton.
was telling the cop. Yeah.
So
I'm not sure if
okay.
Anissa said anything at that point or not, but it's at least what Morgan told the cop.
So Morgan was like the
Yeah,
spokesperson for it.
basically.
Like she was the one who was talking.
Yeah. So
Okay.
they both have blood on them and they were carrying clothes, granola bars, water bottles, a picture for family because she said she wanted to remember her family. Um, and in another bag, there was also the knife that was used for the attack.
There it is.
Now,
Yeah.
this knife had a 5-inch blade. It
Okay.
wasn't a steak knife, it was a 5-inch blade. The girls didn't put up a fight. They
Pretty
just
good knife. Yeah.
went with the cops, and then the girls believed that they were walking. The girls, ah, the girls had this belief that they were walking to a mansion in the woods.
What?
We'll get more into
Yeah, you
that.
better. What the hell?
Yeah. So we're gonna take a look back at the hospital because meanwhile, Peyton at the hospital, she really couldn't talk.
Just
Um, be-
yeah.
and her thorax was also, of course, injured. And when her parents
Yeah.
arrived, they couldn't even talk to Peyton. They couldn't even see her because she was rushed immediately into surgery.
Yeah, of course. They had to stabilize
Yep.
her.
And one of the first messages she wrote after she got out of surgery was, I want to go home. And when they asked her what happened, Peyton simply said that the only thing she remembered was the pain.
Oh,
Peyton
that's
spent, yeah,
terrible.
she spent, this 12-year-old spent 6 days in the hospital recovering from stab wounds.
Mm,
Now, the parents said
sucks.
when the parents were informed that Morgan and Anissa were the ones responsible for her daughter, they said that Morgan was Peyton's best friend, that the girls talked every night on the phone. Occasionally, they would have some arguments, but they weren't concerned because what 12-year-old doesn't have arguments with their friends?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's also something from a journalist in the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. Her name was Ellen. So 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 this stabbing wasn't just random. This happened on May. The girls had been planning this. The journalist said that she couldn't believe that the 12-year-old girls had planned this murder for about 6 months.
Wow. Wait, how did they come to that conclusion? Like that they.
We'll get into the interrogations.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You have the question, I probably have the answer because there's a lot in this case.
Okay.
So during police interrogations, the girl said something quite concerning because they said that they were walking to Slender Man's mansion.
What the fuck? Wait, when was this again?
2014.
Okay. So yeah, Slender Man was like peak.
Yeah.
Was like at its height at that time.
And they explained that they believe they had to kill Peyton to prove their loyalty to Slender Man and become his servants.
Oh my god.
Yep. So Anissa told police that the idea to kill Peyton came from Morgan because she said that they had to prove themselves to be worthy for
Seems like
Slender
it,
Man.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then Morgan tells Anissa that they should be proxies for Slender Man.
Okay, girls. I mean, fuck it, it's your life,
Yeah,
but
the girls made it very clear that this was meant to be a sacrifice for Slender Man. And this is known as the Slender Man stabbing. Stabbing. Yeah.
I feel like I should know about this. Like I feel like it should ring a bell for me, but it's not. I
No,
don't know.
there's a ton of information just going through it. I was like, I know the basics. And then the more I research, I was like, more, 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 more. So, like I said, if you have a question, I probably have come across the answer.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay, okay, okay.
Now, the original plan was that during the sleepover, they would wake up around 2 a.m. And they got all this information during the interrogation. They would wake up around 2
Wow,
a.m.
so the girls kind of like gave a lot of info to the police.
Yep. They said that around
Okay.
2 a.m., they were going to duct tape her mouth shut and stab her neck while she was asleep so she would bleed out. But they decided against it because their reasoning was that it would be too messy.
Valid.
So that's when they delayed the plan until the next morning, pretending that everything was normal. So Anissa suggested to Morgan that they should attack Peyton in the bathroom at the park because, quote, the blood would drain down into the floor drain. And they could close the door in the
Yeah,
stall and nobody would know that Peyton was in there.
it's kind of valid, like solid logic. I
Yeah,
don't know. For like 14 year
12 year
olds.
olds.
Well, one 14 year old.
No, they're all
Yeah.
12-year-olds.
Oh, they're all 12.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, Now, while they were in there, Morgan felt uncomfortable with the setting because there was going back and forth between Anissa and Morgan of who was going to stab Peyton. Um, Eventually, they chickened out, and their excuse was because they couldn't find a drain for the blood to go down. And
But okay.
yeah,
Well, so that explains them taking Peyton into the bathroom, but like, why punch her?
they wanted to
Like,
knock her
why
out.
strike her? What?
They
Oh,
thought that
and then
if
it didn't
that's
work.
right, they thought if they hit her hard enough,
But
she will pass out and then we can stab her. But it didn't
it
work.
didn't work. Funniest shit I've
I
ever
mean, I'm
heard.
just saying, how hard do you
Um,
have to hit a 12-year-old as a 12-year-old to get them to knock them out?
dude, I don't know. 12-year-olds are like malleable.
Yeah.
Like children can like take hits. I don't know.
No, yeah, yeah. So that's why they punched her in the bathroom. Like one held her back, the other one
That
hit
makes
her.
sense.
Yep.
That makes sense.
Now,
And they're like, shit, like this doesn't work.
yeah.
And they came up with the plan to have her lie down. Okay,
Yep.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yep. So once again, the original plan was sleepover, bathroom at the park, like wooded area. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll talk a little bit more about the whole Slender Man because it plays a huge role in this case with those two girls. Um, I'm not gonna go super into it. Like we could do a deep dive if like listeners want to, because I know like that's more of like the paranormal aspect. But for this case, it like merged both. So like
Okay.
it Slender Man isn't just like a story, it was like an internet born urban legend. It first emerged in
Mm-hmm.
2009 on a forum called
Mm-hmm.
Something Awful. and it was created by Eric
Oh.
Knudsen. Slender Man was originally part of a Photoshop contest where users were asked to create paranormal images.
Oh, that's kind of cool,
Yeah.
actually.
So Kunsten, his submission featured a tall, faceless figure with a black suit lurking ominously in the background um, of two doctored photos of children. So this is where the original Slender Man came from.
Got it. That's cool.
Now, what made Slender Man stand out wasn't just his appearance, but the sinister narrative that accompanied the photos, because he was described as shadowy supernatural figure who stalked, abducted, and sometimes influenced his victims, often children. So over time, the internet users expanded his mythology through short horror stories known as creepypastas.
Mhm.
So most people know that Slender Man is like a creepypasta, but the origin was from something awful. It was a contest Photoshop.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, I didn't know that.
I didn't either. I was like, okay, good to know. History. Now, Slenderman characteristics are very vague on purpose, just adding more mystery to the factor. He's unnaturally tall with arms that stretch beyond human proportions. His face is completely blank. There's no eyes, nose, or mouth, just leaving a void of expression where it should be. And then sometimes he's depicted with tentacle like appendages surrounding, like sprouting from his back, just suggesting that he has
It's kind of cool.
otherworldly powers. And then he's most often found lurking in forest, just silently watching the victims. So, what makes Slenderman so terrifying is that he's not necessarily tied to one specific story or set of rules, because, of course, the mythology got expanded. Some
Yeah,
people
all the
believe that he,
creepypastas, everybody saying different
yeah,
things. Yeah.
some people think that he drives people insane, that he feeds off fear. It's just like this fluidity that allows the mythos to grow and evolve over time. So it
Hmm.
just creates an entire subculture of fans who write stories, create art, and made even video games about him.
Yeah, it's cool.
Now, most of the Slender Man was nothing more than just an unsettling internet creation. But of course, for Morgan and Anissa, he was
Oh, he
horrifying and
was
he was
real.
real. Yeah.
Hmm.
So he really just wasn't a story to them. He was a being that they believed in so deeply that they were willing to kill their best friend to prove their
That's
devotion.
insane. Like, how does that happen at 12 years old? And it's like a shared belief between two people.
Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah.
So the thing is that Morgan, she was obsessed with Slender Man. She had the belief that she
Oh,
needed
of
to kill
course.
for Slender Man. Anissa, on the other hand, even though Anissa was the person that I'm not too sure, but it said that Anissa introduced Morgan to the legend of Slender Man. Anissa was easily influenced. And
Got it.
rather than being obsessed with him, she was more fearful of Slender Man compared to Morgan's obsession.
Morgan's
Yeah.
obsession. So
Anissa
Morgan
was
kind
more
of
of the
used that fear a
accomplice.
bit, and yeah, yeah. It's because it seems like Morgan was the one who was directing all of it
Yeah.
in a way. Yeah.
Now, this is also something I got to learn from the state of Wisconsin. When they picked up the girls, they didn't have to wait for the parents to start interrogating them, because in the state of
Hmm.
Wisconsin, a child can be interrogated without the presence of their parents or guardian in the room.
Okay, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah. Of course, the cops still did their due diligence. They read the girls their Miranda rights. And then Morgan apparently waved them and she just said that she was gonna tell them everything. So while they interviewed both girls, they of course both claimed that each other had the plot to kill. And
Oh, duh. Oh
yep,
my God.
because they were
Okay.
not, interrogated in the same room. It was separately. Now, when questioned by the detective, um, he emphasized that Morgan had the knowledge of Slender Man. Not Morgan, sorry. Anissa had the knowledge that Slender Man was a fictional character, in contrast to Morgan,
Yeah.
um, Morgan couldn't really tell the difference between fiction and reality. So during the interview,
In what do you mean? Yeah.
so for Morgan, Slender Man was real. For
Well,
Anissa,
yeah.
she knew that he was like a creepy story, but she was easily influenced by Morgan.
Okay. All right.
So the detective also said that Morgan acted hostile towards him during the interview because during the discussion of the stabbing, Morgan said that she felt, quote, felt no remorse. Um, and she described what she did. This is a 12-year-old. She described what she did as, quote, stab, 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 end quote.
that how does a 12-year-old get to that? Like that's very clearly like psychopathic
We
behavior.
will get to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the interrogation tape, which are out there, and I got to watch a few of them, Morgan can be heard saying just like stabby, stab, stab. Um, and it didn't feel like anything, like it was air. So
Wow.
the police interrogation during for Morgan, um, she claimed that it was like she was acting like it was any other day when she was at home, like under custody. I have some
Yeah.
lines from there. Morgan asked the cop, "Is she dead?" And then the detective said, "I don't know. She was taken to the hospital." Morgan's reply says, "What? I was just wondering." She did not seem
What?
concerned at all. Just very casual. I was just
You know, she
wondering.
seems like very cold, casual.
Another thing that
Yeah,
Morgan
this girl's a
said
psychopath.
to the detective, and this was on the tape, it said, "This is going to get me arrested, isn't it?"
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So this
Mm-hmm.
interrogations lasted
Glad you're catching
for a
on.
few hours because, of course, there was a victim. The victim was in the hospital. They couldn't talk to them because they had their thorax injured. Now,
Yeah.
Detective Tom Casey said that he has a daughter. He was one of the detectives. He said that he has a daughter who's almost the same age as Morgan and Anissa, but that Morgan was saying things that were really eerie to hear coming out of a 12-year-old.
Yes.
Um, One of the conversations said, the detective said, "So did you guys talk about doing this beforehand?" Morgan said, "Anissa told me we had to." Detective, "Why?" Morgan, "Because she said that he'll kill our families." Detective, "Who's he?" Morgan,
Slender
um,
Man.
a man. I don't know him, but Anissa did. So I have some of the interrogation with Anissa as well, because Anissa said there's this website called Creepypasta Wiki, and then the detective said, "Okay, Anissa, it's full of like horror stories that are meant to purposely scare you, and there's this one of them called Slender Man." Detective, "Who's Slender Man?" We're back to Morgan, and then Morgan said he's this tall, faceless man who prey on children. And then one of the lines that Anissa said was, "At his own will, he can explode his tendrils from his back and like strangle his victims." From what the Creepypasta Wiki said, he targets children the most. Anissa said, Morgan said, "We have to kill Bella." Bella was the nickname for um,
For Peyton.
Peyton. Now, following the
I
attack,
don't like this Morgan girl.
no, I do not blame you.
Because like Morgan like like influenced all of this. She's like, no, it was Anissa.
Anissa just said, "Hey,
Crazy.
like there's this really cool website, Creepypasta Wiki." They bonded over it, and then Morgan got obsessed with Slender Man. Well, Anissa still knew that it was a fictional character, but she was very easily influenced by Morgan.
Yeah, I mean that was like one of her best friends.
Yeah.
So
Now, following the attack, they um, also found one of Morgan's notebooks in her school locker. Um, and there was drawings of Slender Man and a picture of a girl holding a knife, and there's blood dripping from the knife.
Ooh.
And the blood is also in her clothing. So
Oh, wow.
Morgan, of course, it seemed that they were planning this from December. So Morgan had sketches, she had talked about it, she had planned it out. Eventually, Morgan was brought to the Washington County Juvenile Detention Center several hours after the attack, and as part of the standard proceeding, they asked Morgan if she quote planned to do anything to end her life. Just standard proceeding.
Yeah.
To which Morgan responded, "Not mine. No, not mine."
What?
Yep.
That is so creepy.
Yeah.
Coming from a 12-year-old girl? Mm-mm.
Now there was a
Mm-mm.
few more
No.
follow up questions um, that we learned that Morgan was referring to her best friend, which was Peyton. Morgan stated, "Well, she was my best friend, but she hates me now. But I had to do it. But it had to be done."
So
Now,
she was saying, like Peyton hates her now?
yeah,
Like, she's my best friend, but she hates me. Well, yeah, you just stabbed her.
yeah,
So,
of course. What am I saying? Morgan
Morgan.
also indicated that this is when we get the information that started to plan, she had started the plan to kill Peyton in December of 2013.
Wow. So it had been a few months in the making.
Yep. So Morgan also added, "We talked in December about duct taping and stabbing her while she slept, but I didn't think it was a good idea. I was supposed to set the alarm for 2:30 a.m., but I didn't."
So they were gonna have the sleepover, and then Morgan and Anissa were gonna wake up at 2:30
Hmm.
to kill. How would they not have woken up Peyton
That's
with
a
that
good question,
alarm
actually.
as well?
Maybe they
Like, what?
realized that on the spot or
How would
something.
were their parents there? Would they not have woken up the parents as
They
well?
probably would
Like, I
have
don't
waken
know.
up the parents. I mean, I think it also depends the layout of the house. If the alarm is not super loud or
It's
something.
true. That's true. Yeah.
Um, so following the attack, Morgan and Anissa filled their water bottles at a Walmart. So after they left the park, they walked to a Walmart, they filled up their water bottles, and they used that water to wash off the blood.
Okay.
Yeah,
So they thought that through as well,
there's
washing off the
video
blood.
of like the two girls walking through a Walmart. Uh, they also wander
It
around
was like
for
security
yeah.
footage. That's cool.
So they also got to wander around a while because they hid because they saw the police. Of course, the police eventually found them, and then Morgan said that the knife we stabbed Peyton with was in her purse.
Yeah, when the officer like pulled them over and found them
Yep.
initially.
Now, after being arrested and interviewed, um, both girls were automatically charged as adults for attempted
Fair.
intentional first degree homicide. So,
Yeah.
under Wisconsin law, children 10 years of age and older are initially charged as adults for first degree homicide by default.
Good.
Now, which of course includes attempted first degree homicide. So, Deborah Collins, she's a doctor of clinical psychology,
Psychology.
um, and she testified on behalf of Morgan. Um, as to the mental health evaluation she completed with Morgan after the attack, she explained that she, as well as the staff at the mental health institute where Morgan was being housed, had observed Morgan, quote, enduring predominant belief in the reality of Slender Man, and other fictional characters as well. I couldn't find what other fictional characters, though. Now, Morgan's belief in Slender Man had been constant, just unwavering, unyielding, and to her, it was very rational. So, another thing was that she was motivated to do the bidding of Slender Man, and that she had not acted on behalf of Slender Man. If she had not acted on behalf of Slender Man, he could have very well killed her family, and she didn't want to die.
So she was like under duress,
Hmm.
and that's why she had to commit this murder. Interesting.
So, one of the doctors did diagnose Morgan with schizophrenia,
Okay.
which, after hearing everything,
Expected.
it's, yeah,
Yeah.
to be expected. During one of the therapy sessions that took place in October 24th, Morgan said, and I quote, "How do you think I was able to repeatedly stab my best friend Anissa? She was all the brains. Um, yeah, she was all the brains. I was pulling her along. I didn't care. I couldn't care. I've never known how to care."
From a 12-year-old
From a
girl
12-year-old.
is crazy. Yeah. Yeah, she's a psychopath.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like a serial killer in the making.
Hmm.
So,
Now,
mhm.
of course, she had to go under treatment and all that stuff. So during treatment, Morgan
Mhm.
mentioned, and it's so strange because there's so much back and forth, but she said that she faked her mental health because she wanted to stay.
Morgan said she faked her own mental health.
Because she said she
Okay.
wanted to stay in the mental health institute because she didn't want to come home because she was getting sexually assaulted by her father.
Oh, that adds on to things.
Yep. Uh huh. Just when you think it can't get worse, it does.
Nope. The investigation deepens.
Yep. So Morgan said that her father was sexually assaulting her for as long as she could remember. Um, and that since her mother would be the one working, that usually it was just her and her dad at home. So there was no one to help.
Yeah.
She said that her dad would often watch her shower. Um,
Ew.
yep. And sometimes Morgan, would sleep on the floor because she knew that her dad couldn't get back up if he got on the floor.
That's so
Yeah.
weird. Poor girl.
To think as a
But
child that it is safe for you to sleep on the floor rather than your bed because your dad can't get you on the floor. It's just sad. During the
it is.
time that she was in the Washington uh, County Juvenile Detention Center, um, she was described as compliant, pleasant, and an overachiever with the treatment and everything happening.
That makes sense, actually.
Yeah. So despite her seemingly like quote unquote model behavior, um, she has previously threatened to hurt herself. And at one point in 2014, sorry, this was not Morgan, this was Anissa. Anissa is the one that's
Okay.
compliant. Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, complete sense. Yeah.
Anissa was put on suicide watch because at one point she did threaten to hurt herself.
Good.
Um, she has also faced criticism from other children in the detention center because everyone knew why she was in there. Um, and with respect
Murder.
to, sorry, these are the last names, and I have to remember who has what last name. Um, yeah, so Anissa, during the 19 months that she spent in the detention center, she was untreated. Not Anissa, Morgan. Morgan was untreated for the first 19 months that she was in the detention center, and her mental condition
Okay.
worsened. She was reclusive, and she still believed that Slender Man exists. Now, an expert who got to observe her testified that when discussing Slender Man, she stated that, quote, "If Slender Man told me to break into someone's house and stab them, I would have to."
That is insane, girl.
Yeah, so she continued to speak for her imaginary friends and she just refused to take medication in fear of losing her imaginary friends.
She she refused to take medication. Where are her parents in this?
I
Like,
don't
cause don't they
know.
have authority to like get her on the medication?
Yeah, I'm sure, but I don't know how much involved they had. I actually didn't hear or see much of the parents for either child. I did get to see a lot of Peyton's parents, but not Anissa and not Morgan's.
Not a
I
Morgan.
mean, also we're talking about Morgan. When Morgan at one point did tell her mom that her dad was sexually assaulting her, and she kind of dismissed it. Didn't really believe her. And I
Oh
don't think
God.
the dad would want to get involved in any way, especially if there was an investigation open for his sexual assault on his daughter. So unfortunately, even if the parents wanted to get involved, I don't know how much they could get involved. Um,
Yeah.
According to Morgan's attorney, when she got on medication, she responded pretty well. Um, the voices she used to hear began to disappear, and she eventually started to show remorse for her actions.
Really, Morgan started to show
I mean,
remorse.
once she got into medications, um,
Okay, I mean that's fair, but it's just such a crazy thing to like to believe. The
yeah,
switch up
I mean
from
the
the
big
cold unremorsefulness
mhm,
to
of like I've never
yeah,
known how to care. I don't know, um, to eventually showing remorse. But of course, it's she gets medicated. Months into treatment, she finally starts
things
to
get
show.
better. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't like a night date like switcheroo.
No, yeah, but still.
Yeah. Now, where is it? The circuit court also denied Morgan's suspension motion, and she eventually pled to attempted first degree intentional homicide with the use of a dangerous weapon, um, enhancer struck. So, upon the stipulation by the state, she was found not guilty by reason of mental disease or defect.
Ah,
So that's when the court committed Morgan to the custody of the Department of Health Services for a period not to exceed 40 years.
so she didn't get charged for anything. She didn't like go to jail, but she did go to a mental institution
Yep.
for 40
No
years,
longer than 40
essentially.
years.
Wow.
Yeah. Now,
Okay.
if she was convicted of the charge, um, if convicted of the charged offense at the trial, she was found not guilty by reason of mental disease or defect. Um, yeah, if she was actually sentenced to like prison, it would have been for 45 years of initial confinement.
Okay.
Yep.
What does initial confinement mean, and then what would proceed after that?
Uh,
Do you know?
it would be followed by 20 years of extended supervision.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So some difference in the order that things would go. But by pleading, she essentially guaranteed herself a finding of not guilty by reason of mental disease or defect. Um, let's see. More of the plea. I have. Okay. Yeah. Furthermore, with the finding of not guilty by the reason of mental disease or defect, Morgan is eligible to petition for conditional release every 6 months. Um, that is something that she wouldn't have been
So
able to do if she was sentenced to prison.
yeah, so every 6 months she has a chance to get out and be
Yeah.
released. Okay.
She wouldn't have been able to do that if she
Interesting.
was sent to prison.
Hmm.
Now, in comparison, Anissa was sentenced to 25 years in a mental hospital after she pleaded guilty to being a party to attempted second degree attempt homicide. Anissa claimed that she wasn't mentally well, which the jury agreed in 2021. Um, and then she was granted release to live with her father and continued psychiatric treatment and she was subjected to around the clock GPS monitoring.
That's smart.
Yeah,
That's good.
yeah.
I'm glad they did that.
And then in 2023, which was just last year, um,
Recent.
the
Mm-hmm.
monitor was removed. So
Oh
yeah,
wow.
so she's still living with her father, like she's still under Pearl and all that stuff, but
So Morgan is still,
well,
yeah.
that was Anissa, and then Morgan
Oh,
is
that was
yeah,
Anissa.
Anissa
Okay.
was the one that
Oh yeah, and then Morgan. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, Morgan is still in the institution, and so Anissa.
yeah.
Yeah.
So this all happened in
So
2014.
they'd be like 22 now.
Yes, it's been 10 years. They're
Wow.
22. Um,
Oh my God. Wait. They're almost they're almost my I'm almost
uh-huh.
their age. What? Wait, that's crazy.
Mhm. So Morgan did eventually petition for conditional release. Sh
Mm-hmm.
This happened in 2014. Her first petition was filed in 2022.
Okay.
So either she waited or her lawyers or whoever was working with her, they told her, wait, wait, wait. We really want to like get you better or something. Um,
Mm-hmm.
However, that petition was withdrawn 2 months later.
Whoa.
The reason it was
That's weird.
withdrawal was because in 2021, Morgan had attempted suicide.
Hmm.
So
So they knew it would not be
exactly.
approved.
hmm
Yeah.
So she had a suicide attempt at night when her roommate was asleep. She had a cord around her neck. Um, she was wanting to strangle herself. I'm not sure what ended up happening that she couldn't do it. So she ended up walking out of the room with the cord around her neck. So the staff saw
Just for
her.
everyone to see.
Yeah, and the staff had
Yeah.
to cut the cord off.
That's crazy.
Yeah. They said
Maybe
that's
she bailed out of it last second, or like the cord couldn't hold her
or maybe
weight
she realized
or
she didn't have the
something,
force
or
to like I don't know.
yeah, who knows?
They did say that like you could see the blood vessels in her eyes that had popped from like the force that she had applied.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, Now this was the first suicide attempt she had, but it wasn't the first self injury that she attempted.
That that makes sense.
At the age of
Unfortunately, yeah.
18 or 19, she had swallowed batteries. Where she,
That's really fucking dangerous. Okay.
yes, where she
Yeah.
get them, I don't know. Of course, she did not die from that. Um, she was also known in occasions to like scratch and cut herself, not to the point where it would be considered suicide, but to the point where it is considered like self harm.
It is self harm.
hmm
Yeah. Trigger warning.
Yeah,
Sorry, guys.
yeah. I didn't give any warnings for this case. Wow, thank you.
We put them at we have them at the start of the
Yeah,
episode.
yeah.
So
Now the second
sorry,
time
folks.
Morgan petitioned, she filed in January of 2024.
Wow, that's when we started podcasting.
Yeah. And it was denied in April 2024.
Oh shit! Does it say why it was
Yeah.
denied?
The judge was citing concerns about potential risk to the public.
Oh,
Yeah.
why? Was she still like violent or aggravated at this
It
point,
probably
or?
had to do a lot with it's been too recent since her previous attempts to like self-harm or suicide. Um, and they talked to multiple experts. Um, there's video interviews, there's quite a few of them, and they talked to a few of them, and they all say that they believe that Morgan will be eligible for parole at some point, but this is not the point where she is eligible. Um,
That sucks.
However, she could petition every 6 months, and she did.
Mhm.
Um, a third petition was filed on October 11, 2024.
Okay.
Yeah. So as of now, she still remains at the wine ban Weinbago Mental Health Institute. I think I butchered that name, but and she's still awaiting the court's decision on her latest request.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, so I have like two lines of thinking, I
Go,
guess.
yeah.
One is I feel bad for her, right?
Mhm.
And in a way, I do want her petition to be approved because if she genuinely is verified to be like improved and good enough, then like she deserves a second chance
Yeah.
on the world because she was 12 years old and unfortunately had a bad environment and she did not have the resources she needed, and
Mhm.
so she latched on to something. But then on the other hand, it's like, well, she did murder somebody,
Yeah.
and
Attempted murder, but yeah.
yeah, attempt to murder but mm.
Yeah. No, it's hard.
Anyway, I hope she's good now because genuinely, like, I am so sorry to Peyton and her family,
Mhm.
but they all were children,
Yeah.
so
During the video I got to see at the hearing of Morgan, whether she was gonna get Pearl or not, I think it was her second hearing. I don't think it was the most recent one. Um, they were talking to people that treated her. And there was the person that, of course, I think it was her lawyer or someone that was trying to be like, okay, if you say she has been improving for the past, however time frame, if she continues in this, if she continues to improve in this progress in this timeline, when do you think she would be eligible for parole to like be
yeah.
brought back into society? And then the person that they were talking to, that psychiatrist said, if this progress continues to happen, like if she's progressing as expected, I would say we can reevaluate another letting her out on probation um, in 6 to 12 months.
Okay, so pretty
Yeah.
soon
Um,
she has a good
and part of
chance.
the reasoning that they want her out, at least part of the reasoning the lawyer is using, or whoever's um, defending her or representing her, is that she's still young. She's a 22-year-old, and she still has, if we get her out now, she still has time to
A whole
develop
bunch
and
of
become
life.
part of a functional society. Like, the longer we keep her, the more damaging it will be when we release her, type of thing. And then, yeah. So, um,
I wonder what it's been like to care for her all these years. One of like the caretakers.
yeah,
Um,
seeing the
I wonder
improvement from
what
like,
she's like now and her personality, and if she's like a semi-normal girl, you know?
I mean, it sounds like that's what they're aiming for with her psychiatrist and all that stuff. And there's multiple psychiatrists like working with her because they want different evaluations from different people, and it all makes sense logically.
Yeah,
um
it
but
does.
they all seem to be on the same boat of like, yeah, there has been a definite improvement from previous years. Now, that's Anissa and that's Morgan. Let's talk about Peyton.
Okay.
um
I didn't think we'd really circle back around to her, but I'm
really.
glad we are. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
So, I mean, of course, despite her horrific ordeal, Peyton, she's now in her early 20s, 22, as of
Mm-hmm.
2024.
24.
I was like, what year is it? She's 22.
Almost 25. That's crazy.
Yeah, just a few more weeks, a
22.
few more days, actually.
A few more days, like a week
Yeah.
left. Yeah.
She's 22. She has shown extraordinary resilience and strength. Her physical recovery was, of course, nothing short of like a miracle. And she spent weeks in the hospital undergoing surgeries and treatments just to repair the damage that was caused by those 19 stab wounds. She
Mm-hmm.
defied all odds by regaining her strength. She eventually got to return to school.
Good.
There is, I think it's an
Good.
ABC interview with her parents, and the interview ends with a video of Peyton walking to the car. They're like, hey, she's finally walking again. She's walking to the car to go to school. She's trying,
That's cute.
yeah. Now, that
That
was
is
an
so
interview, I
nice.
think, that happened in 2014. There have been more recent interviews with Peyton as well.
Okay.
Peyton faced, of course, a long and challenging road, just emotionally and mentally, um, because, of course, you were traumatized and betrayed by your closest friends.
Yeah. Yeah. To put it lightly.
Yeah, so with the help of her family and therapist and her community, she's been able to move forward. She volunteered at an animal shelter and she loved being with the cats. Um,
Cute.
Peyton has spoken about her experience publicly. She's advocated for awareness around mental health and the dangers of unchecked beliefs that can spiral into violent actions. Now, as an adult, Peyton just lives a quieter life. She values her privacy while she pursues her goals and dreams. She has expressed her gratitude for the kindness of strangers, her family's unwavering support, and the skilled medical team that helped save her life. Peyton
That's
has,
awesome.
has used her story to inspire others, showing that even in the face of unimaginable pain, it's possible to rebuild and find hope. In a 2019 interview, Peyton was 17 at that time. She expressed gratitude for life, stating, "I have the life I have now. I, li- I really, really like it." Um,
That's so
yeah.
sweet.
She acknowledged that the ordeal had shaped her into the person she has become. Um, you know, she said, "Without the whole situation, I wouldn't be who I am." And as of 2023, Peyton is a university student with aspirations of pursuing a career in the medical field.
In medical field.
Yep.
Yeah.
She's inspired by the life saving care that she received after her attack. And of course, she prefers to maintain a low profile, just focusing on her studies and personal growth.
Of course.
And that is the Slender Man stabbing.
I it's crazy to say it, but I feel good. I feel fulfilled after this story because of the way you ended it.
Okay, good.
With how with what Peyton spoke about and how she's been doing. So that's really nice to hear. Instantly brought my mood up a little
Good.
bit
No,
because this
I
case was,
realize that
you
this
know,
is one, if not like one of the few cases where there's been a survivor that has made like a full recovery. Most of the time, I realize we cover missing people or family annihilators, and there's really like no like redemption story for like anyone. But in this case, Anissa got the treatment needed. She got out earlier. Morgan's still getting the
Morgan
treatment that she
is getting
needs.
still the treatment
And
she needs.
Peyton,
And
she's doing a full recovery and she's wanting to pursue the medical field, which I think it's actually really sweet and not
yeah,
surprised
it
by
is.
it, but it makes sense.
Not surprised, but it's sweet.
Yeah,
Yeah, good case. Good true crime case to really end
the year.
this year off.
Yeah.
And I guess now's as good of a time as any just to throw it out there, echoing what Peyton said in her message, right, to our listeners and whoever. Um, there's resources out there if you ever need anything.
Hmm.
Like there's help, and it's really hard to muster up the strength and the courage to reach out for that help. Um, but if you need it, please please get it because mental health is honestly the top priority. Like you need to make sure that you are okay, and I'm so glad that in our modern time in the past few years it's really come into prominence to really be known that it's important to take care of yourself
We
and the people
have
around you.
focused so
So,
much on our physical health that so many have neglected their mental health and they go hand on hand. So, yeah, take care of your physical health, but take care of your mental health.
yeah. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So,
I like that case. Well, I don't like that case, but I like Peyton's. growth
Yeah,
and the message that she sent.
same. Of course, no one wants to hear a 12-year-old getting stabbed, but
No, and it's like at the end of the day, they were all 12 years old. They weren't. You can't help but feel bad for all of them,
yeah. And
right?
I mean,
I
what resources did you have in 2014 as a 12-year-old if you were going through something like sexual assault by your father or just mentally?
y- you didn't. You had Slenderman. You had copy
Yeah,
pastas, right? Like
that
that's
was
what
their
it was,
coping
an
mechanism,
escape.
unfortunately.
Yeah, and it turned into more, and that's
Yeah, I mean, her
crazy.
plan
But
was never to go back home. Like, she continued walking to the into the forest or like the plan to find a mansion in the forest. But yeah,
to be with Slenderman,
yeah,
I don't know. That's crazy. Like Slenderman from like 10 years ago is still connected to some modern thing because Megan's still institutionalized
yeah.
and
Doing this whole research, I had
wow.
heard of the story before, but the fact that like there's still updates, like this year she petitioned twice. And I was just like, okay, like there's still things moving around this incident that happened.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks for the
Of
case,
course,
Jay.
you're
That
welcome.
was a good one.
I'm glad you liked
Yeah,
it, and I hope the listeners did too.
I did.
I'm sure they did.
I think they will.
If you don't,
I think they will.
write in.
Yeah.
If you did, write in. Just write in.
Mhm. If you didn't like this case, um, if you did like this case, um, send it to your friends. If you didn't like this case, send this episode to your enemies.
Yes.
We still get the views either way,
Mhm.
so you know
Yeah, yeah, fair.
it works out. um,
Now what do you
cool.
have for us?
So I've got a paranormal
Whoop
case.
whoop.
Um, you guys know how I feel about paranormal cases.
For the new listeners, how do
Anyway.
you feel about paranormal?
All right. So I got a question for you, Jay.
Okay.
Um, what kinds of places do you think of when you think about haunted locations?
Haunted locations, um,
Yeah.
old spooky houses, cemeteries,
Uh-huh.
rundown
Yeah.
buildings. Yeah, I think so. I think that's about
Yeah.
it.
Like like houses,
Like Monster House, like houses that look
hotels.
that old, and
Yeah.
like
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
like rundown
Or
houses.
even like hospitals,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
like
Like abandoned
if it's an abandoned
hospitals,
hospital, I actually
ships.
went to an abandoned hospital once, and then they tore it down years later. So, but
Cool.
yeah, I went during the day because I was too chicken to go at night.
Fair, completely valid. I probably would too.
Yeah, but no, that's what I think
Yeah.
of: rundown buildings,
Um,
old houses,
yeah.
cemeteries.
So
Even though like
I agree. Yes, stuff like that.
cemeteries, I'm like people don't die there; people are buried there. But for some reason, there's this idea that they're haunted.
I've never thought about that.
Yeah.
Why would ghosts haunt a cemetery? They didn't die there. They just were buried
Hmm.
there. What? I've never thought about that.
Yeah.
Huh.
I don't know, listeners. If you know, let
Okay.
us know
Yeah,
why.
that'd be weird as hell. Like I die and I'm like a ghost and I'm like, oh, where am I gonna go? The cemetery? Hell no. What?
And then you're like
Maybe to like
next to a
spook some
person you
people and
don't
have some
like.
fun. Mhm. Be like, oh, that guy
See,
stinks.
I
Like,
think it's sweet if you get like buried with your partner and then like you both haunted. But at the same time, I'm like,
that's cute.
what if you're like,
That's cute.
I don't know,
Some random
yeah,
person.
some random person.
Anyway,
Yes.
so yeah, standard places, houses, hotels, building, blah blah.
Yeah. What do
Um,
you have for us?
and so that's why this haunted location I'm covering today was intriguing to
Is it
me.
a circus?
Um, no, but that would be really cool. um, so it's a bit different from places that like are usually covered or investigated, right?
Okay.
Like the hotels and the houses and all that stuff. I mean, in a way, it sort of still is a house, um,
Okay.
but a bit different. I don't know. Today, I'm going to be talking about the Myrtles Plantation.
Oh,
Yeah.
I can
So a
see
whole
how that could be
plantation.
haunted.
Mm-hmm. But it's not like something you traditionally think of when you think of like a
No.
haunted place, right?
No,
Like
my head doesn't
you
go
don't
to
think of a whole
Plantation.
plantation.
No.
No.
I mean,
So
also,
that's why I was
like,
like, oh, that's
we
kind of
live,
cool.
like, on no. We live on the West
We're
Coast.
never gonna see plantations.
That's why I think, like, we know the word, but, like, we don't go see
Yeah,
them or, like
that's true. Maybe if you live in the South, it's just like a normal thing,
yeah.
right?
You might think
Like,
yeah,
oh, haunted plantation,
yeah.
down the
I think
street.
that's, like, a geographical question.
Might be. We'll have to look into that.
Yeah.
We'll have to ask ChatGPT.
Yes.
uh,
But
but yeah,
anyway,
so the
tell us about
Myrtles Plantation,
mhm.
Myrtles, Myrtles. Um, so the Myrtles Plantation is located in Francisville, Louisiana, down
Uh-huh.
south. Um, it was built in 1796 by General David Bradford. He was a prominent lawyer and became deputy attorney general in Pennsylvania in like the 18th century around that time,
Okay.
late 1700s. Um, so he was from Pennsylvania and all that. He actually had to flee Pennsylvania because he was
Things he did.
being, huh?
Things he did
Wait, what?
because of things he
Yeah.
did?
So yes. So he was one of the prominent figures like to lead the charge in the Whiskey Rebellion in
What
1794.
was the Whisker
Um,
Rebellion?
it's when President George Washington started taxing like whiskey and um
Got
all
it.
this stuff. And so the Americans, they were like, oh, we don't want this. And so David Bradford kind of led the charge. And so George
Okay.
Washington himself like put out the like warrant essentially for the arrest of David Bradford. Yeah.
I'm just sorry to tell. His name was David. What was his name again?
Yeah.
Okay.
David Bradford.
Sorry to let you know, David. In 2024, we're still getting taxed for whiskey.
Shit's crazy out here.
Yeah.
Um
Anyway, keep going.
Yeah, so he had to flee Pennsylvania because he was getting chased. So he went over to Louisiana. Um that's where he built the plantation. Um Now, eventually, a couple years later, he was actually pardoned for his involvement by President John Adams,
Okay.
and so he brought his family over to Pennsylvania with him. They lived in the plantation for a while. Um, Eventually, they did sort of move away. It was sold off. It changed hands a bit. They moved back to Pennsylvania. Anyway, it's also on the National Register of Historic Places, which,
Do you know what number?
pretty cool, kind of familiar. I didn't say what number and I didn't look it up, and I definitely could look it up, but it might take a while because I don't know if you've looked, but the National Register website, it's like so bad. It
Is
is so
it
hard to look up a
like just like
specific,
chaotic, like
yeah.
disorganized?
Yeah, and it's hard to look up specific numbers or like listings of the the build the
You know what?
landmarks. Anyway,
I got
yeah.
this. Let's ask ChatGPT.
Okay.
It might be faster than going
Myrtles
through the
man
actual register.
Myrtles Plantation. Yeah.
How do you spell Myrtle again?
Myrtles. Myrtles Plantation.
Station. The National Historic Landmark number. It
Oh,
is.
we're doing this live on air.
I mean, I think it'd be faster. It's number. That is not right.
How do you know?
Well, it gave me like a 7,800,100. Yeah, it's not
Okay.
right.
Anyway, we may let you guys know that later. Who knows?
Whoa, okay. National Register of Historic Places. Oh, there's only a reference number. That's what it. So there's really, I don't know.
It's not like officially marked or something. Weird.
It's
Anyway,
listed there, but it just
um,
has. Anyway, we tried.
yeah. So the house was built in 1796, right? It had 6 bays of it. It had a big roof. It was 1.5 stories. It the main draw of it was the traditional like Creole kind of southern Louisiana cottage style
How do you
of
get
home.
half a one and a half?
Yeah. So it was like one story, but like I guess sort of some rooms up above and some
Is
like
that what you
attic
call an
spaces, but it
attic?
wasn't like a full floor. That's what it's described as, a
Okay,
one and a
fair,
half
fair.
story house. Yeah. So I didn't argue with that.
We'll have to go see that half
Um
storage, half floor.
okay, it was eventually expanded upon,
Okay,
but
but it
so I'm
started
not sure
with
if
one
it's
and a
still one
half.
and a half. Yeah, anyway. Um but yeah, it was like 120 feet, 25 feet long. Like the walkway towards the front that sort of wrapped around. Really cool plantation, and I'll send some pictures of it. We'll post some pictures to take a look. It had 22 rooms
Oh, that's big.
spread over the 1.5 floors. I'm calling it 2 floors.
Fair,
It
fair.
was 2 floors.
That's still a lot of rooms for two
So yeah,
floors.
it is 22. There were like there's a dining hall, other rooms, a game room, different parlors. It was a whole plantation, right? So the whole living area for like the owners, the slaves,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Thinking of it,
Um,
22 is not that much. I mean, it's a lot because you said rooms, not bedrooms.
Rooms, not
Okay. Yeah.
bedrooms. So 22 rooms total. Yeah.
But anyway, keep going. Yep.
Yeah, the second floor had the bedrooms. So there were 5 bedrooms. Um, yeah, so 5 bedrooms upstairs, and I'll talk a little bit more about those a bit later. Um, so it was owned by General David Bradford, right? In 1796 is when it was built. He owned it for a few years. Now, David Bradford, he died in 1808. So,
Okay.
what is that? 12 years after he built the place. Um, but after he died, his wife Elizabeth Bradford continued running the plantation. Um, so they still had it, they still owned it
Okay.
until 1817. So 1817 is when Elizabeth actually gave it to a man named Clark Woodruff. So Clark, he was actually one of David Bradford's like law students because Bradford was a lawyer,
Hmm.
and so Clark Woodruff, he actually married um, David and Elizabeth's daughter, Sarah. So he sort of
Oh,
joined the family. He
okay.
married into the family, one of the law students.
He's like
Um,
family until he
so
became family.
exactly, yeah.
Okay.
So Clark and Sarah, they took over ownership management of the place, um, and then after that, they just basically owned it for a few years. They ran it. They did have some slaves, and I'll get into that more in just a bit, like I mentioned. Clark and Sarah, they did have 3 different children: Cornelia Gale, James, and Mary Octavia.
Mary Octavia.
Pretty cool names. Yeah. Um, they didn't actually live to be all too old, though, because Sarah and 2 of the children died in 1823 and 1824 because of yellow fever.
Oh,
So
oh.
they didn't live too long.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that's some of the older, I would say, more important ownership history of the house.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, so it moves on even more. Elizabeth Bradford, the wife of General David, she died in 1831. Clark and Mary Octavia, they moved to another area of Louisiana, and then they left the plantation to just be managed by caretakers. Um, Eventually, it was sold off to some more people. It was remodeled. Eventually, it was um, the plantation and everything was sold to a man named Ruffin Gray Sterling.
Ruffin.
Sterling, yeah, Ruffin,
Okay.
Ruffin.
Cool.
Um, so Ruffin and his wife Mary, that's when they did the remodeling. They doubled the size of the plantation,
From
and that's when
22
it got the name
to 44. I don't know.
something like that. Yeah, it was something like
Yeah.
that.
It got renamed, you said?
And then it got renamed. That's when it got named the Myrtles Plantation. It was named after the type of like beautiful flowery bushes that
Okay.
were around there. So myrtles.
Got it.
Yeah. So it went through some other changes after that, so forth, but they're really not all too important to what I'm going to be talking
Fair.
about, right?
Okay.
This is a paranormal case.
Yeah.
Yes, it's prefaced by some history, but
I mean, aren't all
it's
paranormal cases?
paranormal. This is true. I feel like you can't get proper context for a paranormal case without actually going into the history of the place a bit.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
No. You've done your due
This is why I marked
diligence.
us as slightly like a history,
No, it does make sense.
like a history
Yeah.
podcast, right? It kind of does. Yeah. Like we're true crime, paranormal, comedy, and then like
some history.
last.
Yeah.
Something.
No,
like
fair.
that.
Yeah. Makes sense to me. If you disagree, email us. If you don't disagree, email us.
So there are lots of sightings that have been seen here. And by that, what I mean is, I guess, standard stuff, right? Like sounds that you can't explain, creaking, strange smells, or shadow figures that sort of have been seen over the years.
The typical haunting.
Typical
for now.
hauntings,
I don't know what else we'll get into.
For now, yes. Also, I will note the reason these things are seen is because the house actually, it did serve as a bed and breakfast for a while by some of the owners. That's what they opened it up as.
Okay.
And now it's still currently open for historical tours, and you can also book like the rooms to do an overnight stay. Which is pretty cool.
Do they have like a most haunted room?
I think all of the bedrooms are haunted, but they do have like the big like main suite of the house, which I've read is pretty cool.
Okay.
So there's all those type of things, but there's probably the most well-known haunting here of it. And so it's sort of the legend of a girl named Chloe.
No. Sorry. As you were saying, like, the best well-known legend, in my head, I was like, is it a child?
No.
Did you say it's a girl named Chloe?
It is a girl named Chloe.
Okay. Isn't that a child?
Yeah. No.
How old is Chloe? I mean, you'll get into it.
Oh, no, I actually don't know how old she was, but I don't believe she was a child. I do think she was like a grown woman from what I've read.
Okay.
Yeah, so Chloe was this is around the time of Clark and Sarah Woodruff. So the law student marries into the family with Sarah.
Yeah.
So they took over, and they did have slaves, like I mentioned. So Chloe was one of the slaves that was owned by Clark and Sarah. So there's a couple different versions of the story, but there's one that sort of, I guess, I agree with a little bit more. I've read a bit more.
Okay.
Yeah. So Chloe was described as someone who she really wanted to be liked. Of course, she really wanted to be treated better by Clark and by Sarah. So there's that, but also Chloe was said to potentially have sort of been jealous as well, because Chloe wanted Mr. Woodruff,
for herself,
Clark or whatever, and so she tried to get on his good side. Yeah. So there's a version of this legend. It says that there's one night Clark and Sarah, the Woodruffs, they were talking inside of their room, a study somewhere. And Chloe, she went up to the keyhole. She pressed her ear in to listen at the conversation they were having, just to figure out what was going on, what she could help
Yeah.
with. Um,
To get the upper hand.
but she was to get the upper hand, exactly. Um, but she was caught. She was caught by the
Oh.
Woodruffs, which was not a good thing. And so, because it was believed that, you know, you had to remove whatever caused you to sin back then with the religion. They cut her ear off.
No.
Um, yeah, they cut her ear off. And so apparently she would then wear like a green turban around her head in order to
To
hide
hide the
her
fact that she
ear.
was missing an ear. Oh.
Yeah.
The fact that there was a time in history where this was acceptable punishment is mind-boggling.
Mhm. It's crazy that there were slaves that existed and they were considered 2/3 of a person. That's crazy. Um. Anyway, Chloe wanted revenge, or at least she wanted to restore her place in the family. She wanted to be
Like, get in their good side
respected
again.
again. Yeah, on
Okay.
their good side again. So, um, there were the two daughters at that point, Mary Octavia and what was the other girl?
You're good.
Mary Octavia and Cornelia Gale.
Cornelia Gale.
Um, it was one of their birthdays. I'm not entirely sure whose birthday it
Mhm.
was, but Chloe wanted to bake the cake.
Okay.
So she baked the cake for the birthday, but what she put inside of it was the extract of like cooked oleander leaves.
What
And
does that
so that
do?
the extract of that is very poisonous.
Oh,
So
girl, you're trying to get on their good side. What are you doing?
but okay, but there was a plan to this, right?
Was she
She
also
wasn't.
gonna help them recover? No!
Yes, that's what it was. So she, from what I've read and what think more, is she actually wasn't trying to kill them.
Just get them
What
sick.
she did was she was trying to get them sick enough so that she could nurse them back to health. Because back then it was believed that if you could nurse the family back to health, you were
Golden.
amazing,
Yeah.
right? Like you were golden. You were going to be treated great forever because you brought them back to life,
Yeah.
essentially.
Oh
She was trying
my
to cure the
god.
family from the poisoning, but her plan
Was
backfired.
it too much?
Um, it was too much. They ate the cake, and that's why it says Sarah and her two daughters did die from that poison.
No.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that because she baked the cake, she had to suffer the consequences.
Yes, she did. But it actually seems like it wasn't from Clark Woodruff. She actually, from what I read, was killed by the other slaves.
Do you think that was like a form of punishment to the other slaves of like if you try to get us, like I don't know, like we'll have your own kind kill you type of thing?
No, so I don't think that Clark had even realized yet that it was Chloe that did this.
Uh-huh.
What I was reading and sort of made sense to me
Yeah.
was it was actually a mercy killing in a way. They hanged Chloe and then they threw her in the Mississippi River.
Uh-huh.
Like you said, either as punishment or what I think might be more plausible was to escape the punishment
Because she would
that
probably get
Clark
tortured or
would have
it would
done.
have been
Exactly.
ongoing. Yeah.
Or some,
I
yeah,
see that as
worse
well
than
now.
death, right?
Hmm. I see that.
Yeah. Um, and so people are said to still see the spirit of Chloe walking around. They'll see her with her
Mm.
green turban on that she
Oh,
wears.
that's how they know it's
Um,
her. Because the green
mhm.
turban.
There's actually
Oh.
this. Actually, I have a photo. I'll send you it through Discord once again,
Yeah,
Sarah.
no, that's totally fine.
Um, um, this one was from like a Facebook post of some people who visited, and of course, I don't know how true it is. I don't know if it was photoshopped, um, but I think it's a kind of interesting image of what sort of Chloe is believed to look like and how
Okay.
she shows up in photos and is seen.
Yeah, and I mean, if
So
she is haunting the plantation, I'm sure that people have seen her. They're just not ready with their phones to take a picture of her.
yeah, yeah. Um, so I don't know if you saw the picture, but yeah, you can see like in there, and she has sort of the turban
Okay,
wrapped around her
I'm
head.
opening it right now. Let's see. My Discord wasn't open, so like now I'm.
That's
It's
fair.
like
Yeah, I had to open mine up. Mine opened up way quicker than I thought it
mine
would.
had like an update apparently, so I was like, oh, please don't take a long time.
But yeah, people believe Chloe is seen to be the most probably common spirit there. There's a couple more that I'll get into as well.
Oh, okay. That is a group picture. She showed up in the group picture.
Yeah, she just wanted to be with the girls, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
girls trip.
yeah. So apparently the house
Okay.
is also built. Yeah. Apparently the house is also built directly on top of a Tunica Indian burial ground.
I wouldn't. I
Um,
wouldn't dismiss that.
yeah, and so ghosts of like Native Americans. Sorry, that was just like a bang that I heard. It's kind of creepy. I'm not gonna lie. So some people see like this ghost of like a young Native American woman there. Um, People have reported that there's a mirror in the house that apparently holds the spirit of Sarah Woodruff and her two children that were killed as well.
Oh,
Um, so the tradition of covering up
yeah.
mirrors after somebody dies, or otherwise they'll be trapped.
They think
Well,
that's
this
what
mirror was
happened.
said to not have been covered up, and so they
Ah,
were trapped there in that spirit. Um,
interesting.
there's lots of little of there's lots of reported deaths that apparently happened on the property, and people who haunt it because of that. Apparently, there's a ghost who, quote, walks, staggers, or crawls up the stairs and stops on the 17th step. Um,
So why can't it do all of them?
I don't. It's a good question.
Walks, staggers, or
um,
crawls.
mhm. I mentioned there's a lot of reported deaths or murders that happened there.
Yeah,
It's actually reported that there's 10 murders that
that's a
occurred in the
lot.
house. But actual records actually only show that there was one murder
And was that
that happened there.
Chloe's or
It
who's?
was William Winter. So William Drew Winter, he apparently is said to be the ghost that walks, staggers, or crawls,
Oh,
right?
okay.
Um, he at one point, I believe, let me pull this up. Um, so yeah, so the house was sold to Ruffin Gray Sterling, right? I mentioned that guy,
Yeah.
um, and his wife Mary Cobb Sterling, and so in 1865, Mary and Ruffin they hired William Drew Winter to manage the plantation and to be their lawyer as well,
Hmm.
um, and so in 1871, William Winter was actually shot on the front porch of the house by a man named E.S. Weber.
Okay.
Um, Not entirely sure what the cause was. It probably was some type of legal dispute. Since Winter was a lawyer, but yeah, he died on the front porch of this house, and
What
so
year
that's the
was
only
this?
confirmed murder. This murder,
Yeah.
1871.
Yeah, you could shoot anyone at that point.
Yeah, it really
That's how
wasn't
disputes
like
were solved.
investigated much. Like it just kind of like, oh, I don't like this thing you did.
Bam.
Bam.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but while I was doing research, I found some really good, actually firsthand recounts from
Oh.
people who have stayed
Okay. I was gonna be like, is it from, like,
at
the
the place.
slaves, like, the family, the people that have stayed overnight?
No, so
Okay.
modern people who have stayed the night. Yeah. Um, so a couple from Reddit, one from Quora
Okay.
as well.
I
I don't know
have
if you use
not,
that. So
like, opened Quora in so long.
I know I haven't opened Quora in so long either. So, um, this comes from user Starshine Fairy on
Okay.
Reddit, which is a really cute name. They say, I've been to the Myrtles Plantation 3 times and have spent the night twice. I've had a few things happen and was wondering if anyone else ever spent the night and experienced anything. The first time I had slept at the Myrtles Plantation, we experienced things before it was even nighttime. I had went with my fiance and we chose one of the cheaper rooms on the right side of the house. I can't remember the name of the room, but after going up the stairs, you took a right and went to the last room on the left. I believe they said a soldier had stayed in there and he had lost a leg or foot. Anyways, as we got in the front door, we were overcome with the smell of cigar smoke. It was
Mm.
pungent and overwhelming, almost as if someone was standing next to us smoking one. I asked my fiance if he smelled it, and he said yes. It disappeared as quickly as it had came, but I brushed it off thinking maybe someone had snuck a cigar hit in from a different room, and we were possibly just
Oh.
catching a whiff of
Yeah.
it. While we were walking into the room, I asked my fiance if he knew of the superstition about the upside down keyholes there and was explaining that it's supposed to prevent spirits from entering the building.
That
As soon as
is
I finished my sentence,
that is one
it's kind
trick
of
I did
cool,
not
yeah.
know, yeah.
Yeah, me neither. As soon as I finished my sentence, my fiance turned on the antique lamp in the room and the bulb exploded. It startled us, but I chalked it up to the lamp just being old.
Mhm.
We went to the gift shop and told the lady working that we needed the bulb replaced on the lamp, so she sent a maintenance guy to go replace the bulb. We followed him to the room and he replaced the bulb, but it wouldn't turn on. So he said he had to replace the lamp.
Okay.
We stayed in the room when he left so that we could unpack our drinks and snacks from our bags and get ready to explore the grounds. While unpacking, it sounded and felt like someone was hitting a cane against the floor. I could feel the vibration from where I was standing and told my fiance that something wasn't right.
Mhm.
He said that maybe it was someone downstairs in the room below us banging a broom on the ceiling, trying to tell us we were walking too loud. The problem with that theory was that there wasn't a guest bedroom below us. In fact, it was the dining room, and there weren't any tours going on,
Oh.
nor were any guests allowed in that section of the house.
I'd also feel like that'd be
To me, it
weird to
sounded
do.
it would be just like at the ceiling, like poking up with a
Especially, like,
cane.
if you're, like, in a
Yeah.
dining room.
Hmm.
Anyway,
Yeah.
keep going, yeah.
Also, like in a hotel, like just go up to the door. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, to me, it sounded like someone hitting a cane on the floor to get someone's attention from below. We went outside into the guest shop and asked um, if anyone was in the main part of the house, and told her what happened. She told us that the room in the main entrance of the house was reserved, but the guests hadn't checked in yet, and that there wasn't anyone in that part of the house, nor could they get into the dining area because things are locked up. We
Interesting.
thanked her and didn't make a big deal of it and went exploring. Fast forward to that night, we were both sound asleep until I woke up with the feeling of someone watching me. We had left the new lamp on so we could see if we woke up and had to go use the bathroom. Well, I woke up and could feel someone watching me. I turned towards my fiance, thinking that he was awake and not able to sleep. His eyes were closed and he was in a deep sleep. I sat up and scanned the room until I found the source of what was causing my feeling of being watched. Standing at the end of the bed, about 2 feet from it, I see a man standing there with smoke swirling in front of his face like he had just taken a drag of a cigar.
Cigar.
Mm-hmm. I had only seen the upper part of his body and he was staring at me. After about 10 seconds of staring back at him, I said, "Nope," and promptly laid my head on the pillow and pulled the blanket over my head and forced myself to fall back asleep.
Okay.
The next morning, I told my fiance what happened. He asked why I didn't wake him up. I told him I wasn't about to do anything else but go back to sleep. I don't want us to both be staring awake at this ghostly man. We left later that afternoon to head home.
Love that.
Uh,
Don't
mm-hmm.
know if I would be the type of person that goes nope and covers my head up.
Me
I'd be
too. I
like,
would definitely
there's
wake up my
someone in
fiance.
here. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Um, their post continued to say, a year later, we returned to spend the night there, this time choosing a different room. This room was across the hall from the first room we rented, and the only downside was that it was connected to the room in front of the stairs. There was a door inside the room that, if unlocked, you could walk into their room.
Mm.
We didn't have any experiences this time throughout the day, nor did I wake up that night. Well, we ended up calling it a night around 9 p.m. and settled down for bed. There was a small luggage rack in the room, so I had placed it beside the bed and put our phones, my eyeglasses, his wallet, and my charger on it. We went to sleep and woke up the next morning. I reached for my glasses and my phone. I didn't feel anything off the luggage rack. I sat up thinking everything must have fallen on the ground from me, maybe bumping it in my sleep. I looked on the ground beside the luggage rack and couldn't find anything, so I woke him up thinking we were robbed. I got up and walked to the bedroom door that separated the rooms, but the lock was still in place. Confused, I turned around and noticed that everything that was on the luggage rack was now scattered in the middle of the room.
No,
It was impossible for it to have gotten there unless someone picked everything up and threw it across the room.
someone didn't want them in there.
Mm-hmm. Everything was intact and nothing was broken, so we decided to just pick it up and go downstairs for breakfast. While eating breakfast, we happened to be sitting across from the couple who spent the night in the adjoining room from ours. They asked if we had woken up that night and if everything was all right. We told them we slept throughout the night and only woke recently. They told us that they heard a bunch of commotion coming from our room and were wanting to knock to see if we were okay, but chose not to. They said they never heard us and figured we were asleep until they woke up to the sounds of banging and things being thrown. I
Oh,
told them about how our things weren't on the luggage rack whenever I woke up and couldn't figure out why until I noticed everything scattered across the room. They said it was so loud and didn't understand how we weren't woken up from it.
yeah.
We didn't
That's
understand
what I was
either.
thinking of too.
Yeah.
They have to go back a third
That's one
time.
experience a user had. Yeah. Um Now there's another person who on a different post said something. Their name is or user Burtonesque underscore strange.
Okay.
Um, they said, I have a couple stories from an evening we were there in March of 2019. It was actually my gift to myself for landing a job, because why wouldn't I want to go to a haunted place for that? Fair. My mom and I took an evening tour. In the first room with the famous mirror that continuously smudges to look like a face even when it has been cleaned and polished, the
Mm.
one that contains Sarah and the
Oh, so
kids.
that's the mirror.
It's that one,
Okay.
yeah. We were standing in the back corner right next to the closed door to the parlor. This is also next to the front door of the home with a large porch. We heard children giggling and talking quietly, and since there were no children on our tour, assumed that a family with children were outside the front door waiting for another tour or just hanging out on the porch.
Mm-hmm.
A few rooms later, we made it to the other side of that door and into the parlor. Our guide stopped her story abruptly and apologized. She said the children are playing with her skirt and she needs to fix it. She then told us that the spirits of the children like to play in the parlor and love to mess with her dress. She said their favorite spot was in the corner by the door my mom and I had been standing on the other side of. We looked at each other and both had goosebumps. At the end of the tour, I looked at the many photos I had taken. For some reason, there were multiples of each photo. Some there were two, some three or four. Only one was clear, and the other duplicates would be completely blurred. I even had a photo I didn't recognize taking. It was off of the floor. When I talked to the gift shop about the weird photos, they said that it is common. They said the spirits like to mess with the camera and take extra pictures.
Ah, good to know.
So, kind of interesting.
That's interesting. Yeah. Because usually, like electronics is one of the things that tend to go haywire.
hmm
So the lamp in the other story, and then
Um,
the camera on this one.
yeah. And one more that I'll read out. This is the Quora story. This is from a person named Shauna Riley. She said, I have been to the Myrtles Plantation dozens of times since childhood. Visit it at least once every couple of years, even if it's just to stop by and shoot some photos from the outside. I live about an hour away. And I've spent the night there on 3 separate occasions. I love the place and have always been drawn to it. Whether it's haunted, though, is not something I can say unequivocally.
Ah.
I believe it most likely is, but feel everyone should check it out for themselves and form their own conclusion. I wish I had ample evidence to share, stories and photos, but I do not. The truth is, in all the many years I've gone there, all the times I have slept overnight and prowled around the quiet house and darkened grounds, all the hundreds of photos I have snapped at all hours of the day and night, I have nothing that really stood out except for one actual experience I would call paranormal in my personal perceptions. There is a strange air about the place, especially in the stillness of 3 a.m. It's like you've stepped back in time. As I said, I believe in the paranormal, and I do believe the Myrtles Plantation is haunted, but I haven't had a direct experience of these hauntings. That certainly isn't to say they aren't happening, they just haven't happened to me. I do believe there's something going on at the plantation. It's one of the reasons, other than my simple love of the place, that keeps bringing me back. The one thing I did experience, which was certainly paranormal but not necessarily an intelligent haunting, was only sound. But it was certainly not a sound that was taking place in the physical world or in the time and place I happened to be experiencing it. It's quite difficult to explain, but it was a unique experience. That happened the first time I slept overnight in 2001. I know also that the girls in the room next to us had their shoes moved while they slept. They were so scared upon waking and seeing this, they left immediately and did not stay for breakfast. The interesting thing is that the strange noise we heard from about 3 a.m. until the sun rose sometimes seemed to be coming from their room. Again, it's something I think everyone should try and experience for themselves. Even if you don't get a paranormal experience, you get to visit a lovely antebellum home in St. Francisville, Louisiana, one of the most beautiful little historic towns in the US. If you make the trip, be sure to also check out the Grace Episcopal Church and Cemetery, where many of the families who once lived in the Myrtles are now buried.
Nice. That was very informative.
Yeah.
I like it. I like how they're like, it's not an intelligent haunting.
Yeah, it's just like something that
Yeah,
happened.
that's cool.
That's kind of cool. Now, I will leave off with one thing, as is customary with, I don't know, customary with how I like to end my paranormal
Oh,
cases.
okay.
Um,
I wasn't sure where you were going with this.
Something to kind of entirely disprove a
Fair. No,
lot of
go
the
for it. Yeah.
paranormal.
Yeah.
um, the whole legend of Chloe, the
Yeah.
slave who killed Sarah Woodruff. Um, it's likely not true. There is actually no historical documentation that supports it.
Mm-hmm.
The U.S. federal census shows that in 1820 there were 5 slaves there, and in 1830 there were 32 slaves. And so there's documentation, but in none of this documentation is there ever note of the Woodruffs owning a slave named Chloe or Chloe or anything
Ah.
like that.
Okay.
Um, the legend also says that Sarah, as well as her 2 daughters, Mary Octavia and the other girl, Cornelia, not, oh,
Yeah,
I forget
Cornelia
her name.
Gale.
Yeah, Cornelia Gale. Yeah. There we go. I was right. Um, none of none of them were actually poisoned. Mary Octavia, she lived. She survived into her adulthood.
Okay.
Um, and Sarah and Cornelia, they died, like I mentioned earlier, to yellow fever back then.
Okay.
So it's a virus. So fever, chills,
Mm-hmm.
headache, a lot things like that. So
See,
it's not true,
from my point of view,
but there's
that makes a
still
lot of
other
sense.
things. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Like, here's the census. Here's that they got to live, and that one of them died from yellow fever, not from poisoning. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
very logical, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah. Well, there's my case, the Myrtles Plantation. I don't know if I was gonna add this in or not, but I think sort of as a PS, an addendum at the end of my case, because case over, and now I just want to add something
Fair.
in. Um, there's a review on TripAdvisor for the Myrtles Plantation.
Okay, I'm curious
It's a
now.
1-star review. It's a 1-star
Uh
review.
huh.
It says a well-rehearsed ghost story. This person said, my daughter had read stories about the Myrtles Plantation and really wanted to see it in person. We scheduled a mystery tour for 7 p.m. I thought that the tour at night would add to the experience. An old plantation home with an interesting past at night. I was very disappointed in the tour. The ghost story is well rehearsed, and the whole tour feels like you are watching a theatrical production of The Ghost of Myrtles Plantation. The drama department may be proud, but don't waste your money on the tour. The furnishings and artwork in the house are not from the house, just pieces from the time period. The tour guide said very little about the house itself, just told ghost stories, some personal, and slammed a door that scared the younger kids. Very disappointing tour. I would have liked to have seen/heard more about the house.
Okay. You are getting the people that are going
I
on a
still want to
night
go.
tour that want the historical things.
No, yeah, that's kind of crazy. Like, don't go on a night tour if you want the history.
Yeah, go on a historic day tour if you want the history. Go on a paranormal night tour if you want the paranormal stuff. Like, I get his point. I get the point. But at the same time, as soon as I hear, like, they told ghost stories, I wanted more history. You did sign up for a ghost tour.
You did sign up for a nighttime ghost tour. That's kind of on you, buddy.
I love that.
Anyway,
I think going forward, if you're interested, we should find 1-star Yelp reviews or just TripAdvisor reviews for haunted locations.
Of haunted locations? That would be so fun.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Because I loved it.
Oh, that's cool. that was cool.
And
that's a good idea. Yeah, we could definitely do that.
Yeah. So
anyway, Myrtles Plantation.
Thank you for listening, folks.
And thanks for listening. Thanks for being here for
12
the last
months.
episode of 2024 for 12 months.
For 25 episodes. Plus
and all the old
12 old news nonsense
bonus episodes and
the bonus ones,
2 campfire stories.
Yeah.
And all of our guests, thank you for being on here, and thank you for listening to our guests that we brought on.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been awesome. And it does mean a lot to us. So.
It does. Thank you for sticking around, and we'll keep bringing you ghost stories and paranormal stories, and that's the same.
No, there's a difference.
And true crime, that's what I meant to say. But yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Happy holidays, folks. Once again, we are recording this on Christmas Eve now.
We are.
So, yeah. Fun way to end off the year.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here. Anyway. Goodbye. And Smurfs.
Bye.
I don't know. I'm sorry. Thanks for listening to Chambers of the Occult. For photos, sources, and anything else mentioned during the episode, check out our website at chambersoftheoccult.com. You'll find everything you need there if you do find yourself wanting more. You can also follow us on all of our socials at Chambers of the Occult and on Twitter at COTO Podcast. If you have any questions, comments, recommendations, personal anecdotes, or concerns, let us know. Fill out our contact form on our website, email us at chambersoftheoccult@gmail.com, or leave us a message on our socials. We would love to hear from you. And if you enjoyed what you heard, we would greatly appreciate it if you could drop a like, leave a comment, and subscribe. It is absolutely the best way to show your support, and it would mean the world. Until next time.